Hi everyone, my name is Patrick Akil, and for today's episode we cover AI in the city of Amsterdam. We go over what kind of projects are being worked on right now to make the lives of the people easier, or at least not make them worse, and I invited my buddy Maarten Sukel on, who's currently AI lead over at the city of Amsterdam as well. I actually went to the same university at the same time. I'll put links to his socials in the description below, and with that being said, enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Beyond Coding, a dive into the world of successful people in IT. From your sponsors, Zebia, creating digital leaders. Here's your host, Patrick Akil.
Hey Maarten, how's it going?
Good, Patrick. Good to be here and good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you again, man. It's we were just talking about before the show. Yeah. It's been 6 years, 5 years?
6 years, I think, something like that.
Yeah, for the audience at home, Maarten and I went to the same university. You'll probably hear that in the intro. Yeah, but you're working at the city of Amsterdam now.
Yes.
Doing a lot of cool AI stuff.
Yeah, so right now I'm the artificial intelligence lead for City of Amsterdam, which is, I think, quite cool that we have a position like that. And for me personally, it's even nicer that I'm the one that gets to do it.
Yeah. Really cool. And coming from university, how'd you get into the position you are in now?
So basically, I think even during the bachelor's, I messaged the city at one point. They were going to do some things with data, and I said, hey, I can help you out with that.
Yeah.
And they replied like, oh, that seems like a good idea. So from there, I started doing an internship. I started a business in the same area.
Yeah.
And I always sort of hang around there, also doing my master's. And never really left. So
nice.
Yeah, that's how.
Yeah, so it started from an internship, and then you actually got a more permanent position there?
I think I did a bunch of internships there.
Yeah.
Well, also working on like side hustles and everything. But eventually they, at the end of my master's degree, they did maybe like an offer, like, hey, you can come work here. And at the same time, do your PhD at the university.
Yeah.
So basically, I think the reason for that was when I said I wanted to work there, but I'm also interested in the PhD.
Yeah.
They started calling around and see like, hey, can't we tell them both is possible at the same time. Yeah. So that's what I'm still doing right now.
Exactly. You're still doing, you're both working at the city of Amsterdam as well as doing your PhD.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the ratio there?
So I would say 1 day a week for the PhD.
Yeah.
But of course, sometimes if there's a project that needs a lot of attention, it will shift a little bit. And if I need to publish something, well then, of course, there's also a shift.
Yeah.
But it's quite challenging to juggle those because it's both more than a full-time job sometimes. Yeah,
it's nice to have that flexibility then, that you can just shift the scale wherever it's needed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but initially you started out as a data scientist?
Yes, I started at the city as a data scientist. So I would mostly work on projects by myself.
Yeah.
It was quite in the infancy, like the data science being done at the city.
Yeah.
But over the years it grew a lot. So right now, my own team is 12 people, where we're really focusing a bit more on, I would say, research and development, a bit more the state-of-the-art sort of, state-of-the-art, just how you would define it, type of technologies. So more like the computer vision, new data sources. But overall at the city right now, there's approximately 80 data scientists.
That's a lot.
So it's a lot, definitely. Yeah. And I think when I started, probably there was like 10. So
okay.
That shows,
Man, that's a big growth in like 5 years. That's a lot.
For a local government, I would say definitely.
Oh yeah.
If you compare to certain companies, for example, Meta doing a lot of recruitment in Europe.
Yeah.
I think they said something like 10,000 vacancies.
Yeah.
Then it becomes really small. But of course, that's a whole different story. Yeah.
What about like software engineering positions? Do you have a lot of those as well?
Yes. So there's also teams working more on software development, like more on the application side of things. And of course, the data engineering. We have a lot of data as a city that we sometimes even legally have to distribute. So if this open data platform, which of course requires a lot of maintenance. So on that side, I don't know the exact numbers right now.
Yeah.
Because recently we have been also investing a lot in more basically cloud competence and more moving to the cloud.
Yeah.
So that's growing a lot. So I wouldn't be able to put a number on it, but I think it's more than a data scientist. Yes. Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be troublesome hiring people in the first place, no? Because we already had the comparison with Meta. You can't offer Meta money at the city of Amsterdam, basically. So you need to offer other stuff, right?
Yeah, like values. I think that's something where we really jump in.
Yeah.
But for example, we do a a lot of internship projects with the universities every year.
Yeah.
And I think we get over 200 applications each year to come do projects with us. So
Nice.
of course, that's internships, but it does show that's a bit like the younger generations, the new talent coming up are very interested in working at the city.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with them really wanting to do something for society.
Yeah.
And the same reflects in also when we're hiring, well, for example, data scientists or software developers. They're also sometimes interested in doing something for people, basically.
Yeah.
That's, or for society.
Which is
so
awesome.
That's a bit of a unique selling point we have.
Yeah, I mean, your role, and I'm kind of speaking for you, so if I say it wrong,
Yes.
let me know. But your role is to make the city better, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a team, from a technical point of view, make the city better, build solutions that solve problems within that city. And the goal is to make it better for the people to live in it.
Yeah, and maybe also try to prevent it from becoming worse.
Yeah.
Especially because like the artificial intelligence lead, that's a technology that really has two sides. You can think about all the positive and nice things you can do it, which we really like to work on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also have, I think, the responsibility to citizens to use that expertise to also think about possible negative effects on society.
Yeah.
So, the fake news going around, filter bubbles being created, deepfakes becoming easier and easier.
Yeah.
That's all going to have a lot of effects. So maybe it's good to already start thinking about possible, mitigations or solutions for those things.
Yeah, you're really thinking already ahead about what the impact would be on the people within that city or the society.
Yes,
Yeah?
definitely.
That's dope.
Yeah.
And already working on prevention or like solutions towards that, or is it still more in the
Well, it's
thinking
of course
phase?
a lot of thinking about solutions, but in the terms of algorithms, one thing really nice thing we are doing right now, which I really like the idea of, is the algorithm register.
Yeah.
Where we try to be very transparent about all the algorithms we're using in our organization, basically, and it comes from the idea that we're basically a public organization, decisions are being made out for individuals, and I think every decision about somebody's life we should be very accountable and honest about how that is made. So the algorithm register is like a first step into doing that. So being able to tell people, this is why we're using this algorithm. This is basically information of you it's been using. These are possible biases, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So I think
People can find that online. Like you publish the
Yeah.
information about that.
Yeah, so we had a beta version. We launched that together with Helsinki.
Okay.
So Amsterdam, we always try to collaborate with other cities because, they have the same issues, of course. And now we're working on like a new version. But there's already a lot of, you can find like the general setup and the idea of how it will look.
Nice.
So, yeah.
It's really cool that it's kind of out in the open like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had Kaya Veers on a few episodes back, and we talked about AI bias, right?
Yeah.
Certain AI solutions not recognizing people that had a certain skin color or having certain biases for males versus females. You don't want that, right? That's not really going to benefit the city as a whole, because the city of Amsterdam is very diverse.
Definitely, yeah. And of course, that's the... I think I listened to the episode as well, and it's a really good point. And you're training something on subsets of data always. Like you could say the real world, like around us, that's the whole data set. You never have the whole data set to train.
Yeah.
So there's always a bias basically by how the data is selected. So that can be coming from sensors, or you scraped images from a certain, for example, from Twitter.
Yeah.
If you take pictures from every user from Twitter and start training models on that, that's probably got a very good at detecting politicians, journalists, because I think they're more represented on Twitter.
Yeah.
But it will work less well on people that don't have Twitter.
Exactly.
So that's definitely true, and it's always something we try to mitigate. So in the registers, also a part of it is like a bias, and what did we stop to, what we basically put in there to make sure there's no negative effects from it.
Yeah. Exactly. And people can first of all see that, right, which makes it not that much of a black box anymore.
Yeah.
People can challenge that, and that in and of its own makes the end result hopefully better.
Yeah. Well, you can't fully open the black box, of course.
Yeah.
But at least try as far as possible.
Yeah.
And people can see the boxes maybe a little bit smaller than sometimes.
Exactly.
It's said.
Yeah, it makes sense. What are some of the other projects that you're currently working on that you can share?
So like, because we were talking about like 5 years ago, one project I was thinking about, it's quite an easy one, but it also shows like the bias that's a quite simple model can have.
Yeah.
And that's something we did for the service requests coming into the city. So it's quite a basic, we had hundreds and thousands of service requests with the text, and then we basically knew the correct category. Well, that's a very one to train some NLP models on.
Yeah.
So we did that, and it was really nice because now people don't have to select anymore what they want to basically, request help with. So garbage or noise in the streets, things like this. So there are boats speeding over in the canals, of course. Hopefully the weather will be coming better next month.
Exactly. But that's they would fill that. Where would they fill that in? Like on a website?
So it's on the website or call by phone.
Yeah.
And basically it will turn into text and it will be analyzed.
Ah, dope.
And it works quite well. It's now, I think, processing 400,000 approximately a year.
Yeah.
But there we saw it works really well for things we have a lot of examples for.
Yeah.
But then at one point, the new things would show up. So that really thinks about how are you putting this into production.
Yeah.
There was this thing in Dutch, it's called the eikenboomprocessie RUPS.
Okay.
Can you translate it? Or
No.
Do you know what it is?
Eikenboomprocessie?
Yeah, well, it's like this bug that ended up in trees, and it was never in the Netherlands or not at large numbers.
Yeah.
And actually, when you walk past, it would sting you.
Oh, really?
So that was never really something that people would contact us about. But of course, if you put that word into the into the model that's trained with machine learning, it would not recognize it.
Yeah.
Well, that's of course a quick fix because that's a really distinctive word.
Yeah.
But it sort of shows like that it will be very good at things that are already happening a lot. And if there's new things happening, it will be less well at detecting those.
Yeah.
And maybe the service will be less good for new issues.
Exactly.
So that's the really a project we started with that was really nice. But later, after, of course, if you have been reflecting from some years, you also see the downside of it.
Yeah.
So that's,
That makes sense.
But I think it's a nice project, cool project.
Exactly. I mean, 400,000 requests a year, that is a lot, right? A human is not really going to filter through that, or it will be a full-time job, if not more.
Yeah.
But to categorize that and be like, oh, this request is actually for this department, that's really nice, right? That's exactly where technology can help.
Yeah, sort of. I always saw this sort of. I think there was the deputy mayor that said at one point when she saw the presentation, which was extremely sharp.
Yeah.
She said, "Oh, it's sort of like translating like human language to civil servant language."
Yeah.
Without somebody having to do something.
Exactly.
So I think that's what it's doing.
Yeah. But then the end result of that, or what would be an end result, I hate it when I pick up the phone and I don't speak to a human, right? If I have a concerning issue.
Yeah, that's something we don't want.
Exactly.
No, yeah.
Yeah. But do you still have that or no?
Yes, we still just have humans picking up the phone.
Yeah.
And they will basically use the system to quickly enter it.
Yeah.
So that's how it's set up right now, I believe. So I did hear the other day about some companies that they use systems. Basically, you call them and they ask you what's the problem, and of course you give them like this sound sample.
Yeah.
And they use this to train. Basically, also a model to see to which person should we route this, but also so seeing the topic somebody's talking out, but also like the way somebody's saying it.
Yeah.
Like
if they're
we
agitated.
don't do that, by the way, but I heard about it that it's something that's being done.
Wow, that's
so. If you sound a bit angry, you might get somebody with a very soothing voice or approach.
Yeah.
And if you sound very, I don't know, in a rush, you get somebody that's always very fast.
Yeah.
So.
Man, that's really so much into the details and the nuance of that voice, basically. Yeah. But man, I mean, my girlfriend had her laptop that updated automatically. A Wi-Fi driver broke. She tried calling Microsoft. She never got a person on the line. And at the end of like a dialogue menu, it would just say, "Thank you for calling Microsoft," and that would be the end.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, no help whatsoever, and a lot of frustration. Right? You don't want solutions like that in the end.
Yeah, I had the other week. I was calling. I tried to stop my contract for a newspaper.
Yeah.
Basically, when I said I wanted to stop it, it would automatically like hang up.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
That's a great way to keep your customers. But I don't think that was AI. That was just a bug. But
yeah. But I can call it an AI tool that processes these service requests. Is that something you worked on hands-on?
Yeah, Then back then I was still working like hands-on on the project. So and there was also. The moment I make this model, it was like, very nice. Oh, hey, we could do this. But the system that was being used was quite old and really like this, the classic government legacy system you would know. Like, nobody really knows how it works anymore, but let's just not touch it since, it's quite essential.
Everything on-premise as well?
I think back then it was mostly on-premise. But so I started like messing around in Django and make some API for Flask for the, for basically for the NLP part of it. And then I made like this prototype, which sort of became the base also for the new system.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call myself a software developer or a front end or a back ender at all.
Yeah.
But back then it was really nice to hands-on to do everything like a little bit myself.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like if you're doing everything, you're not doing anything good.
Exactly.
So yeah.
I agree with that.
But I really like the data science part of it, so that's why.
Makes
also
sense.
my masters, of course, but
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, with that, right? I think we're talking about years back. Your role has kind of grown, right? Because if a team grows from 10 people to 80 people, and you're now from an intern to an AI lead, I'm assuming I don't know how much hands-on stuff do you actually do?
Actually, today I got some small code running, but that's from how I say it, that's quite
rare.
unique. Yeah. So of course for my PhD, I'm still like writing all the experience for myself. So that's I think most of it where coding still comes in.
Yeah.
But most of it is helping others so they are able to do their work. And making like plans for the team and doing talks and inspiring people. So a lot less than it was 5 years ago. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And do you miss it? Because I think a lot of people will either face a split in the road, right? You either go more in depth, you stay with the hands-on, you become an expert in that, or you go more high over, right? Become a multiplier of kind of effectiveness. Yeah. But you yourself give in that hands-on kind of work in progress.
No, I really miss that. I really like that. Just building something and then thinking, look, this is. And you can control everything yourself completely. So it really becomes like your baby. So that's nice. But the reason I still also like my position right now, I can really open doors for people and see like, hey, this is somebody that could really potentially have a huge influence in the city and the technology that we deploy, and then try to get them in a place where they can do their work and basically work on what they believe in. Yeah, that's also extremely nice. So back then I was the first data science intern, and now every year we have approximately 20-25 through the whole city. Yeah, and that's really nice idea to know that I hopefully these people are also going to be working on things that are good for the people in Amsterdam.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I saw online something that's called Amsterdam Intelligence. Is that still from the city of Amsterdam, or is that kind of a collaboration thing going on?
Yes, so Amsterdam Intelligence, it came from sort of, we worked on a magazine 3 years ago, and the title was Amsterdam Intelligence, and it basically was about artificial intelligence and what it could mean for the city and what type of things we're doing with it. Yeah. Basically from that it started going like, hey, let's make sort of like a platform where together with like the academics, institutions in the city, and some other cities as well joining in, where we could share about the projects that we have been doing. So people could get inspired or see like, hey, what are you doing? So also give feedback like, hey, maybe there's some bias going on here that you're not aware of. So now we have that Amsterdam Intelligence platform set up. So basically it's a blog from one of the developers or data scientists working at the city or one of the interns, for example. Yeah.
Nice. I mean, a few years back, I wasn't necessarily as big into this field as I am now, but I have seen some stuff. I mean, definitely from your LinkedIn stuff about the projects you're doing, kind of making the city better. And I can see like they're incremental steps of making the city better, right? With the technology that we have. You told me something about a project that makes Amsterdam more accessible and more diverse.
Yes, it's something we launched 2 weeks ago. It's actually the idea of it, from what I said with the service request, it's this technology usually works for the large numbers. So I think that also reflects with new technology in society. Yeah, it often works for the majority of people. Yeah. If there's something new, it probably 80% will be able to use it, but some people will be left out. So we figured that we AI in the way that, for example, machine learning works, in training on the data that you have, that this effect might be becoming much bigger even for this technology. Yeah. So that's why we said, hey, let's do a project where we solely focus on basically people that are normally not focused on. Yeah. So that's how we came up with Amsterdam for All. It's basically measuring like the inclusive accessibility of the city. Cool. So if you're in a wheelchair, can you go from point A to point B? Are there going to be obstacles? Can we measure those? That was really nice. And when we started with the project, we also worked with a great design thinker in my team, Claudia. She's like organizing workshops together with everybody, talking with these people, like what's really the issues you come into. Yeah. And it's quite tragic sometimes to hear the stories, like when I want to go to a restaurant, I really sort of have to scout digitally, like, hey, can I access there? Is the door not width okay? Can I read the menu if my eyes are not working as much as with most people?
Yeah.
So we were thinking bringing that into like possible smaller research directions, and that's what we're working on right now. It's all sort of small, well, I would say 3 to 6 month research projects to see how we could measure this in a new way. And actually going quite well.
Nice.
So the idea is that this summer we will have some methods that we can, on a very large scale, measure accessibility in the city.
Yeah.
So for example, the amount of obstacles on sidewalks from point cloud scans, which is like a copy of the real world, which is very cool.
Okay.
And maybe we can talk about that later, but then turn that into like a measurement of how well people can go through the city if they're in a wheelchair in certain areas.
Yeah.
And then the idea is to do like a yearly measurement and see how we're progressing towards the goals we have as a city.
Nice.
Which is that these people can actually join in society with at least amount of obstacles in the environment as possible.
Yeah.
And of course also working together with organizations that are close to the UN. It's called World Enabled. And they're part of like the Sustainable Development Goals as well, that in 2030 we want more equality within countries and between countries as well.
Nice.
So basically measure that every year to see are we going in the right direction, because this is normally very expensive if you have to go out and see if all the sidewalks have like a correct curb ram, etc.
Yeah.
So really,
But then how would you go about measuring that? Can I download an app and just put that while I'm driving, or that's the stuff I've seen?
You have a few of those as well. I think the one is that's very promising is that we bought basically like a point cloud for the whole city. So it's
what do you mean by point cloud?
Point cloud is the LiDAR scans. So basically, instead of just taking a picture, you also take the depth with every pixel using lasers.
Okay.
If you have to put it a bit roughly.
Yeah.
So what you end up with is, instead of a picture, well, still a picture. You get a picture, but also for every pixel, you get an XYZ value of where this is.
Yeah.
So, well, you can load that in Unity, for example, and get like this 3D model.
Nice.
But you can also use like segmentation models, the same as you use in an image.
Yeah.
For example, to extract poles from it or trees from it.
Okay. And those the machines that create those images, are they planted around the city? Does someone go?
So it's like it's a sort of like a sensor equipped on a car, and they will drive through the city. It takes all these snapshots, and then later it's combined into one big file. I think it's about 6 terabyte of points.
Okay.
So pretty cool data to work with.
Yeah.
But also especially for cities where you have to do so much in the public space. If we can map very accurately on a large scale.
Yeah.
So this is useful for the accessibility, but also very nice to hear or know where all the street lights are, or if they're tipping over maybe, or what's the condition of trees, etc., etc.
Nice. Man, you can do a whole lot of measurements if you have that data, right?
Yes.
Within the height, the depth, and kind of identifying those objects.
Definitely.
Yeah. When it comes to a sidewalk, seeing if a wheelchair, well, based on probably the axis of the radius of the wheel, if it can actually bump over that and make it, or if it needs to go around and find a different route, basically.
Because of course we also reply to people saying, hey, I can't pass here.
Yeah.
But what you see with the service requests is there's like this imbalance within the city, that in some neighborhoods there will be basically more requests coming in some neighborhoods where, well, the issues are also there's no requests coming in.
Yeah.
So we try to sort of help everybody equally and get everything well maintained.
Yeah.
So there it also creates like a solution. Because if you only reply to the request, well then there might be like a huge bias in how you're helping people.
Yeah.
Still happy with the request. Those people should not stop with those. But in terms of accessibility, I think it's really cool that you can, for example, they did right now is so Chris and Dan and my team, they mostly work with this. They have like these. We know where the sidewalks are, so they can just cut those points out and basically see where there are obstacles standing that are above a certain threshold.
Yeah.
And from that, they go to like making this walkability map of the city. So basically, can I walk from here to here? Yeah, well, you can go here, and this is like the width is 1.2 meters. But if I go here, it becomes like 0.4 on the left side of a pole and 0.6 on the right side. Well, and with the wheelchair, it might already be a bit tricky to pass through.
Yeah.
But of course, that's something you can calculate with it.
Yeah, really interesting. And then if you do those improvements and let the car kind of drive the same route, you would have those measurements again, right?
Yeah. So you, and if you have like the stack set up once, and the sensors don't change too much. Of course, those sensors are really improving quickly and becoming cheaper. So probably they will change a little bit.
Yeah.
Same as if you take a picture every year with the newest phone, then you will see a huge difference in the quality.
Yeah.
I think that's with these scanners, it's going even quicker. But the general idea is that you could do the same measurements every year and have some sort of like baseline for, okay, this is how the city was and this is how it changed.
That is really cool. It's really tangible, right? Because you just make some measurements, see how accessible it is, right? However you define it. You make those changes and again, do your measurements and see if it has improved or not.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're in a wheelchair, it would be a big change for you if all of a sudden new routes open up. Basically, it's like a new sidewalk being built next to a road if I'm just on foot.
Sometimes like just removing a pole could already make a huge difference.
Exactly.
And of course, these are all also very small adjustments that had to be made through the city.
Yeah.
But like having this insight can really help with a bit more precision, trying to find, hey, where should we change this? Where should we set up projects? Yeah.
Yeah. So the team that works on, for example, that example or a different project, what is that team structure like? Is it a team full of data scientists? Are there software engineers, cloud specialists?
Yes. So for this, like the people working on the point cloud now, that's one data engineer and one, what we call AI researcher. So somebody with a bit more like an academic profile, because this is a quite new data source. There's like some research going on it, but it's not as well developed as NLP or computer vision. So you really need like a bit more, somebody with a strong academic background.
Okay.
So that's actually the two of them. And it's not yet running in the cloud because we are looking into like how could you distribute such data to more people to work with, because as I said, it's 6 terabyte.
Yeah.
So that's quite challenging to do.
Goes up quickly.
Yeah. So that might be in the future that we dive into that. Right now we made like the decision, okay, let's just keep it quite hacky, but make like all the code very well. Yeah. Have like a hard drive that's 6 terabyte and turn it into information that can be used. So we have a lot of analysts that can really work with, here, this is the location of a street light and the angle is this. So try to get that information to people that can work with that and process it further into the organization. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's first kind of going through whatever data we have, identifying potential issues or stuff we need to resolve, and then putting that through to the right people.
Yeah.
That kind of explains, because I had a bigger team in mind, basically.
Yeah, for this project. Well, I have to say these guys are really these two guys. They're really good at what they do.
That's awesome,
and they make a really good team. So sometimes you just get that magic spark going on.
Yeah. But do you have projects where you actually have like a data engineer or data scientist, even what the difference is there, and maybe more cloud oriented people?
So it's something we're moving towards.
Yeah.
I have to say, as a government, like working on cloud can be challenging because there's a lot of regulations from the government, basically.
Oh yeah.
That we also have to follow really strictly.
Yeah.
So of course, there's something like a point cloud is not as privacy sensitive, but if you're talking about an image that's taken on the streets, you have to think about a lot of things like where can we store this? Or is it going to stay within the borders of the Netherlands?
Yeah.
So that makes like the whole cloud transition even more challenging than it normally already is, I think.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of actually a whole department set up now to set up the basically compliant cloud environments where you can work in.
Yeah.
So we have things like sandboxes. So if we have a new project, we can just go in there, play around with dummy data.
Nice.
So that's actually quite nice. But for something so specific as the point clouds, we don't have that set up yet, unfortunately. So
that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, going to the cloud is already hard for people that don't have that kind of privacy sensitive data, right?
Yeah.
And then even if you do have that, there's a lot of challenges that you need to first resolve before you probably can leverage the cloud.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think you can do the same, except you don't have maybe the elasticity that the cloud has, or kind of automatic computing in the first place.
Yeah, so of course it's like if you're prototyping, it's fine if you're doing things locally or just here and there.
Yeah.
But the moment you really want to scale things up, for example, if you said, hey, we make a pipeline where this data is coming and it's immediately being processed, then you need a bigger team.
Yeah.
But of course you also need some need to be able to pay for the team.
Yeah.
So that
makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to zoom in on the amount of students that, you said kind of 200 applied. How do you integrate those within existing teams or within existing projects?
Yeah. So it's basically every year we just go around through the organization, sort of scouting for interesting ideas that we could work on. So just talking to the business, as we call them, and You see, okay, what are you working with? What are there any possibilities here?
Yeah.
And then if we find something where we check it for like, hey, do they actually have like interesting data to work with, etc. Because well, you really want to make sure somebody can make something of such a thesis project.
Yeah.
And basically, when we have these projects, we go to like thesis fairs, etc. And then, students can apply and say, okay, I'm interested in this project, and then we try to find like a nice match in interest.
Yeah.
And usually how we set it up is that 2 days they're basically working, for example, with somebody that knows everything about bricks.
Yeah.
And 1 day they're working with our team and sort of like helping them with both the technical side as the academical side of it.
Yeah.
And the other day of the week, they're actually, other 2 days of the week, they're normally at home or at the university talking with the supervisor.
Nice.
So we try to bring like this academic world together with the practical world.
Yeah.
Which can be tricky because, they have to do something that's like academically interesting for their thesis.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they have to do something that's useful for the city, because of course that's where they're working.
Yeah.
But I think even though it can be tricky, like balancing that can really create nice things, because you get all the new ideas from the universities and all the new energy from this new talent.
Exactly.
And then basically focusing on problems that we have. So that's sort of how we set that up. Yeah.
You mentioned there needs to be kind of enough data to analyze in the first place, right? How often is that not the case, that you actually don't have those measurements or that data yet?
Yeah, we actually, I think 3 or 4 years, we used to call it like a data morgana. It's like people would be talking about, we have this data set, we could do so many cool
like
things
mirage.
with it.
Yeah.
And at one point, you basically you get the access to the database somehow, or you get like aggregated information from the data, and you're like, no, that's not actually complete at all, or it's very messy. I don't think I have to tell you that it's normally not so good. But yeah, we learn through the years, like, hey, when is actually something a good data set? So basically anything that's not entered by humans, that's if it's made by humans, it's not good data, unless it's like very well structured and coming in through web forms, etc.
Yeah,
then it will work better. So that's you learn to know like what you should look for.
Exactly, within the data, and it probably involves a lot of cleanup as well, regardless.
Yes.
Yeah, makes sense. Have you ever done a project or within the city of Amsterdam that didn't end up that well, that just didn't work out the way you planned to, kind of a flop, or like lots of learnings but non-actual practical?
Well, I'm not sure if it was. I think the one time we made for a speech of the Deputy Mayor, we made a deep fake of her. Well, basically, she would turn into Angelina Jolie at the beginning of a speech.
That's hilarious.
Sort of to create awareness for the deep fakes.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say it's a flop, but like something we'd stop with quite quickly. But it was quite nice to do. So she opened with Mosfest, looking like Angelina Jolie for a few minutes, and then turning around, being like, no, it's me.
It's me.
That's a bad example of a flop. More like a short project where, we knew it's not going to be something we'll be doing weekly or at all.
But that's a lovely example of just big impact, kind of big awareness.
Yeah, keep it small and try to show people like, hey, this is possible.
Yeah.
Maybe a good example of something that we thought was very interesting, but maybe didn't end up as how we expected it.
Yeah.
It was during COVID. Actually, I think like after the first wave, things were opening up a bit, and it was December was coming. So I think it was like Black Friday and holidays. And nobody was paying attention to distance, or not nobody, but even not enough.
Yeah.
There were stickers everywhere, people flying like, hey, please keep your distance. So at that point we were experimenting with a screen with a camera on top, basically with object detection. So it would detect people and it would calculate like what's the distance between them.
Yeah.
And then show it on a screen. So not saving any information or something. So you would see yourself on a screen like that, with a smiley on your head, and it would be happy if you at enough distance, and it would be sad if you don't. Okay. So actually that's like, also I think like a project I filled in 1 month. And we actually had it loaded up on a small truck with a screen on the side. And like my webcam that I was using for my Zoom meetings was duct tape on top, and to like a laptop with a GPU in the truck. But from the outside, like people would see this, and I think a lot of people understood it incorrectly. So they would be like, I figured this was, red meant that I had COVID.
Okay.
So they got sort of scared. Like,
So
I was standing there. I was like, no, that means like you're too close to somebody.
Yeah. Means that you could, how do you say that? Give COVID to someone else.
Yes.
That's what that means.
Yeah. But that really showed like Yeah, you have to be a bit careful because
Oh,
also with how people see this AI, like it's recording me and it's tracking me. Actually, object detection and not saving the image is not doing something with your face or your identity.
Yeah.
But if people do feel it's doing that, it's still, I would say, maybe we should really good think about if you want to use it like that.
Yeah.
Because you also want to make people feel safe on the streets.
Exactly.
And not just be legally correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And they get confronted with it, and the way you visualize that can either make them definitely feel afraid if there's a pandemic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not something it was not the intention of the project. So that's maybe I was thinking a bit of a flop. It did get a lot of awareness for COVID and also for like using AI like that. So that was nice from it. But
yeah, it makes sense. Do you have a lot of like shorter cycle projects, I guess, or time wise, or more longer?
It's always a bit of a, I would say it's like this wave where at one point we have one big project and we sort of try to work together on it a bit more.
Yeah. And
then when we start finishing, then more smaller ideas, more smaller projects to see, hey, which one is good to work on.
Yeah.
So as with like finding the good student projects, you really need to dive into it actually a little bit before saying, okay, this is feasible or not.
Yeah.
I think that's the same with like bigger projects.
Exactly.
I would rather have like 20 small projects and then 2 of them being a good idea, making them bigger, than having 20 big projects and then having the same sort of success ratio. Of course,
Yeah, it makes sense to kind of focus on a few things and really do those right, or try and figure out how to do those right, and then doing other stuff, right? Instead of working on everything in parallel. Just as you said, if you're working on a lot of things.
Focusing on one side, but at the same time I'm saying like, also doing a little bit things next to it. So that's trying to find the balance between it, like doing short cycle things, and at the same time like the more structural, bigger projects.
Yeah,
I think that can be tricky, but that's of course something you can organize.
Yeah, I'm wondering let's say I'm a student and I joined the city of Amsterdam, first of all for my thesis, but then actually either in a junior position or a graduate position. What would kind of be the career path? Because you say there's a lot of high potential people join a company, right?
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons people leave is if there's not enough career progression.
Yeah. Yeah. So by the speed we're growing, that gives a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
So for example, we hired people a few years ago, really like experts at computer vision.
Yeah.
And they first were working like in the AI team.
Yeah.
And at one point we're like, this is something we really should focus on a bit more and like have a bit more specialized people organized it.
Yeah.
So that always turned into some sort of like internal government spin-off where we also have like a computer vision team, where they're now also like a bit more senior roles. So that's how fast it can go. Like if you really have your niche and something nice, well, then there's freedom to develop that further.
Nice.
So maybe not what you expect from a government, but I think there's more possible, especially in technology that's developing so quickly and having so much influence on society. It's gonna grow.
Yeah.
So that gives a lot of opportunity. Yeah.
I wouldn't expect you to be working with more of the state of art technology, basically. But what you're saying is because a lot of these things are more theoretical, still a bit more on the educational front.
Yeah. So I'm a bit more on
trailblazing
next to the academic side of the organization, working with data science, things like that.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I mentioned more like the state of the art techniques and approaches. We of course also have a huge organization of people working in data science doing really nice things, which is what would be very, very new like 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that's very important because that's where already the low-hanging fruits are, and actually you can make the difference. Yeah. But as City of Amsterdam is an organization with 80,000 people, so I think we can also it's good to also look a bit on the horizon, see what's coming, and already start learning about it.
Yeah, I like that. The combination of using the established technology, right, to solve problems that you know how to solve because you have those technologies, and kind of looking at the new up-and-coming things, right? Things that would open doors, that would make the impossible all of a sudden possible by, for example, having all the data to measure and locate objects within a street, for example. All of a sudden you can make it more accessible, or you can measure accessibility, right, which is a weird thing in and of itself.
Yeah, you can do the same thing basically using like geographical data and data that we have. But that's I think also like the issue, data that we have. So we know where certain objects are, but of course a good example is bicycles in Amsterdam. Well, we don't have the registered where those are standing.
Exactly.
Like we have where they should be standing. Yeah. But with this new technology, you're like capturing like a subset of reality and then using that for your analysis. Yeah. So more becomes possible with more detail. So that's it's very cool.
Yeah. As kind of a last topic, I wanted to zoom in on more your personal growth, because it's been 5 years, right? You joined as maybe an intern or for your thesis, and you're now kind of AI lead. What has allowed you to excel and to get that role within a, I would say, small kind of time frame-ish?
I think for me, it's what it was for my managers. It was not up to me. I'm really passionate about the topic, talking about it, thinking about it, and I think that energy somehow is people get inflected by that, and will really like that. So I think that's the reason why it went so quick. Yeah, and I'm also not very good at sitting still, so that's that's also helping. Yeah,
exactly. But you gave on. I mean, you said you like more of the hands-on stuff, right? But that is exactly what you gave up to get kind of more high over, more overseeing multiple projects, multiple teams as well. Why that choice then for you personally?
I think because I'm more passionate about technology and like how it could help society than I'm about how much I enjoy it to work on it myself. I think it's more of like it feels like I can amount to more results like this. Yeah. So that's why.
That's really cool. So you focus more on the why, right? Why are we doing this and what problem are we solving, rather than how are we solving it in a more technical sense? Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think I was never the best developer. So I think in my team I have people now that I'm like, so happy that you're doing this instead of me. Yeah. So that's also part of it. But probably one day I will also try to go back a bit more on the keypad basically. And,
it's a balance, right? Within a team already, you have certain people that are better than others at certain skills. I'm definitely not the best at everything. But you, for example, you're better at communicating probably what it is that you're doing, maybe even how you're doing it. But let the actual how and the in-depth knowledge of that within the team, right? In the end, the team is accountable and responsible for getting it done. So you being part of that still does a big part of that. Which is really cool. Cool, man. I think I have a pretty good idea of kind of the projects you've been doing and still are doing. And kind of the road you laid out for yourself as well. Is there anything that's missing that you still wanted to share?
No, I think we covered a lot.
Cool, man. Yeah. Awesome. Then I want to thank you for coming on, and we'll do this again sometimes. Maarten, Sukel, everyone. We'll put all the links to his socials in the description below. Amsterdam Intelligence, I'll put everything in the description as well. Yeah. And thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you like the episode and want to support the show, don't forget to leave a rating. Better yet, share the episode with a friend. Let us know in the comment section below what you want to hear, and we'll make it happen. Cheers.